Hi, welcome back to another episode of Farzan Eyad, where we talk about everything business and innovation. Thank you so much for continuing to listen to us, whether on YouTube or Spotify. You can find us on YouTube at Eyad or Spotify and Eyad. You can listen to us or contact us and eyadsmail@gmail.com. We're on Instagram and Facebook as well. Now, in the past, we've spoken on our very first episode about how we came about to this podcast, right? There were a few things, we were wondering about whether it was a cultural thing, the big differences that we'd seen in the way businesses want to create value for their stakeholders, their shareholders, their communities. And we've continued that journey where we've spoken about marketing, the frameworks, the legal side of things, sustainability in terms of ESG and from a business sense. And today, I think we're going to be discussing business agility and AI, as well as, as usual, we'll go around some other related topics, won't we, Farzan?
As usual.
Yeah. How have you been?
I've been up and down lately. I think the weather has been affecting me a little bit, but all in all, it's been great. And to your opening earlier, this whole topic about business agility has been a personal interest, because on one side, I've been through this experience trying to do this whole Agile transformation. But at the same time, this is when I learned about the term business agility.
Right.
And as a lot of companies talk about, trying to be agile, adopting agile, etc., there's another school of thought that says, stop talking about agile, talk about business agility. And to that, I've invited two special guests for us to talk a bit more on this topic. And their expertise is around agile, as per the topic of Agile itself, as well as business agility and how business should think their business. Slightly different into the terms of adaptability, in terms of how can they chase the pace of change of today. So with that, I'd like to introduce our guests today, Subash and Eric. Why not you guys give a little bit of introduction of yourself?
Okay, let me then start with my introduction. So I've been with a few consulting companies. That's the start of my career with Accenture and all that. And the last stint was with Maybank, where I had the privilege of driving Agile across Maybank Group. And that includes training and sort of internal consulting within the group. And I think as of last year or 2 years back, now I can't even remember, but at some point I just decided to leave because my passion for this topic and this space of agility was there, and I felt, why am I doing it just for one company when I can work for multiple? And I wanted to have the flavor of various industries. So, and it's quite agnostic, this topic. So that's why I left. Now I'm a full-time entrepreneur with one employee and potentially two interns if they don't ghost us by next week.
Oh dear.
That's excellent. If they don't ghost you.
We got ghosted twice.
Oh wow.
They just didn't turn up.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
So we can change the topic to Gen Z millennials ghosting employers.
And it's an agile approach to job hunting, I suppose.
I know. And so being agile, we just went ahead and just asked for more CVs.
Absolutely.
Move on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Right.
Eric.
Yeah, a bit about myself. Like what Subash said, it's about the passion to do the things that we like to do. So for me, I actually started in IT. So I was a software developer. I did operations. I did business analyst, project management, and a couple of years back, I was a Scrum Master. And then I got opportunity to join digital transformation, in which I really looked at agility across the entire organization. So why I wanted to transition was because I felt that it's time to do more, because I always feel like there's a glass ceiling and I needed to push through. So that was the opportunity. So when I did that, things changed in the company. So when the new management came in, a lot of these things were going the opposite direction. So I also left the organization and I joined a small consulting firm now, which is doing similar things with Subash. And because we're a small community, we connect with each other and we find opportunities together. And we are kind of on a similar mission, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to pick on your experience, Eric. IT to digital transformation to Agile as a big topic. Agile just work in IT, not elsewhere. thoughts?
It depends. Well, the thing is, if you look at the fundamentals of Agile, or at least the 4 values, it does apply. It's not specific to tech, although it started at that background, but it's not specific to tech. And to make a lot of products work, is more than just tech. You need people from various functional skill sets. So if you are applying in an organization, you can't just expect tech to adopt it first. Not just first, but only to adopt. And that's where I think most organizations get it wrong. They start there first, and then they see it's not working, because obviously you can't run a product just with tech people. You need the business guys. So it has to be more of a company-wide initiative.
So my take on that is that if you know about Agile, the Agile Manifesto was like over 20 years ago, since 2001. It was started by software engineers. So they went out for vacation, but they were all from different disciplines and they have their own ways of working, and they found that there are a lot of similar problems. So they tried to solve the problem with the Agile Manifesto. So with the Agile Manifesto, it grew from the software development IT industry, and people felt that, oh, it's an IT thing, but now it's matured. It's way beyond that. So a lot of companies who find success in, let's say, IT teams, they find that they still get blocked in terms of, like, let's say, new innovations. We need more funding. We want to try new things. We need to meet the market demands really quickly. And all of it breaks down because you have like additional bureaucracy and stuff like that. But people realize that, hey, they're onto something. So marketing teams also pick up and say, oh, the key or secret sauce there is actually feedback loops. So we need to try smaller experiments. Instead of like year-long marketing plan that you must stick to, you get the feedback and you're like, okay, let's pivot. Okay, this works, let's double down. So that's how things grow. And that's why the term business agility is way beyond that IT's agile in the old days. Yeah.
Business agility. One, we started off with the term agile, and now you mentioned business agility. Can we just have that definition so that our audience really understand what is agile and what is business agility that you've been referring to?
Okay, my take on business agility is, I think it's trying to get the whole organization or company on board into becoming a lot more agile. So it's business. And primarily, I think for Agile to work, you need to look at it from the lens of change management. But today, if being an Agile consultant or a coach, if I were to go to an organization and say, I'm going to do change management for you, I'll probably never get through any organization. I mean, it's old school, not sexy anymore, right? Change management. Who talks about change management? But at the end of the day, when you go and do Agile, what you're doing is change management, right? And I think business agility is all about change. Individual, team, and organizational change, including leadership. So if you don't look at all 3 aspects at the same time, you're going to miss out. If you just focus on leadership, you get them all on board, get the rah-rah there, but you don't go and talk to the guys at the middle layer and the ones who are going to run the business, it's still not going to work. So you need to kind of hit all 3. So it's org-wide.
Just want to dive a little bit deeper on the word change there, because I'm pretty sure people out there will be questioning, what kind of change? Like, change happens every single now and then. As a business, especially nowadays, right? It happens very rapidly. So what is different than Agile that demands this kind of change? What kind of change are we talking here?
Specifically, if I were to name some practical things, like, how you let go of control. We can talk about hierarchy, but end of the day, what it is, it's being able to let go of control. So if you want Agile teams to work, what you're trying to say is, I'm going to give you more autonomy. You don't give full autonomy, it's never going to work, but you need to slowly and have a plan to increase autonomy. But to do that, I need to let go of a lot of decisions that I make today traditionally. I need to stop having 100 committee meetings in order to get something through. So that is one example, all right? And then the other example is your traditional roles. The focus should not be on roles, you should be on skills that you bring to the table. So if you go on roles and everyone's going, what role do I have in the team? But an Agile team doesn't have roles. Apart from the Scrum Master and your product owner, apart from that, there's no roles. It's just a team. So it's skills that you bring to the team. And that's a very different lens, right? So HR has to look at it very differently, because today in organizations, we pay people by role, we promote people by role, everything is role based.
Yeah.
So how do you change the lens to skill rather than the roles?
Yeah, I can imagine it will get very chaotic. Like people say, I'm hired as so and so, but you guys expect me to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If I just bring it back to your earlier question, right? So I over prepared. I have my laptop here, and I got the actual business agility definition here from the BAI, Business Agility Institute. So it says that business agility is a set of organizational capabilities, behaviors, and ways of working that affords your business the freedom, flexibility, and resilience to achieve its purpose no matter what the future brings. So that's their official Business Agility Institute's definition.
Tons of consulting words there.
Yeah. but essentially they try to encapsulate it, right? So the points is organization capabilities. You mentioned about that. Behaviors, whether it's leaders, the different levels, ways of working within that. And then freedom, flexibility, resilience to achieve its purpose and towards the goals of the company. But deeper than that, I think maybe if I have time later on, I'll touch a bit about the identity of the organization and how it will actually impact how people work and where they are going towards. Yeah.
Okay, I'm still dabbling here, right? Because being experienced in this space, I do understand where you're getting towards to, right? But imagine I'm fresh from the oven from a business school, no idea about business agility or agile per se. And you come to me and say, okay, it's all about change management. It's about changing from role-based to skill-based, changing the hierarchy of ownership from upper management to team-based ownership, decision-making. But as a business leader, I'm clueless. What does that actually mean for my business? Right? I'm used to run my business like, just saying 10 years. I see nothing wrong. Right? How would you start? I mean, what kind of mindset that I need to be able to see how running business with business agility would make a change?
It's almost like
Okay.
what would they see as the problems surfacing that indicate they need to run it as in a business agile way?
Problem
right?
or opportunity? Because I get this, right? Like okay, you see a lot of traditional business, they've been running for 10, 20 years. They see no problem at all. And probably for their next 10 years or 20 years, right? Probably no problem is going to happen at all because they've been running this. But what's the opportunity? What necessitates the change, right? What kind of mindset that I as a business owner needs to be able to see in order for me to understand this whole business agility thing?
I think if you ask it in that way, right, it's something like somebody who's like, you say you own a business, you've been running it this way for 10 years, why should I need to change? Then my answer is you don't. Because
Okay, then we should go back.
because you're not ready. When you ask that question, means that you're already happy with your status quo. There's no reason for you to change. So unless you feel that, hey, things are changing around me, the world is moving faster than my business can meet the demands of, I think I need to do something. So that's when we can have a conversation. And based on your answer, I will know whether your style is very one way, process-oriented waterfall type, or you are actually open to experimentation and trying different things. So based on that, then I can kind of gauge which direction to go with you.
And that is true, because it's, and I don't like this phrase agile transformation, because agile cannot be a reason for transformation. You are running a business and you're going to change your business. You want to make more profit. That should be the reason. And then you choose what enabling tools should I be using to enable. And that could be project waterfall, could be agile, could be anything. But agile cannot be the reason for that change. It has to be business, and I want to change. So if exactly what Eric said, right? I mean, if you have someone who's very happy with their business, I'm okay, and I don't want to see year-on-year growth of 20% every year. I'm perfectly happy. My wife is happy with me. I'm happy. I can go back and do stuff with my family. Then why bother, right? But if I see a sense of threat, right? And then if you do a SWOT analysis in your team, if you see a sense of threat in the future and that's growing, then you need to start now. right? You need to start thinking about it right now. And the way I would look at it for Agile is always start experimenting first with certain teams, because it's not going to work for everybody, and it's never going to work for everybody. You should never do a big bang Agile transformation. It might backfire on me as being a consultant, but I would never agree to any big bang transformation for Agile.
Yeah.
It should be very small scale, with the teams that have the right mindset to want to do something different, and the leaders there who want something different. And they're bold enough to try, because that experiment may not yield anything for the next 3-4 years. So you need to be patient with it, right? And keep trying different things. So Big Bang is not something I would.
There are companies who have done it the Big Bang way.
Yeah.
And some of them are usually for the wrong reasons, and these are the reasons that give Agile a bad name. And one of the reasons, the main reason, or mistake number 6, is actually doing these big transformation projects because of cost cutting.
Right.
So they realize that, hey, we need to do something about our costs. We need to deal with some issues. We want to increase our profit and stuff like that. So they look at that as a way, and they think of Agile as just another tool that you can just get everyone upskill, and then you just throw them in and like, okay, you guys have been trained, so therefore you are now Agile. Therefore, okay, we have improved our efficiency. Okay, Subash, bye. I'll let you go now. So that is the totally wrong reason, and it messes things up. There's a book by this, I think, John Cotter. It's called Accelerate, and he did a study and find that all the people or companies who ran this Agile big transformation, capital T, right? They usually don't go well, right? There are some examples on the internet, like some insurance company. That they have a lot of success stories. They show, oh no, we fired all our employees and they have to rehire, or they have to apply back for the job, and we did so well. But if you study them through the years, you will see that there's a huge decline after that. Yeah.
Okay, so coming back to the reason why I like this topic very much is essentially what they mentioned, because when I look into the topic of Agile, I realize there's a notion around what Agile transformation is rarely positive, one. But then when you deep dive into bigger companies who's been doing well, name dropping here, AWS, Samsung and all this, they don't call themselves Agile. There's no, I've read a lot, I probably missed a few, like there's nowhere in whatever report that says they've done Agile transformation or they've adopted Agile. No, but when you digest the organization ways of work, it's Agile in nature. Yeah. So that's why it becomes very interesting to me, because there's a notion of what business agility is, i.e. taking a business and making it Agile enough to adapt to change, to run with the pace of technology driven or the pace of today, versus, hey, there's a good framework out there, let's adopt that, right? Which, well, what gives Agile the bad name? That's my position. And I'm not sure about you, Eyad, right? Because I'm pretty sure you've seen as well, like all this notion about Agile and all this, but to me, let's focus around what business agility means. How can we run business in a way that it's faster, we're more flexible, we're adaptable, we're more invincible towards the change of pace is coming around.
Yeah, there's some interesting things you guys have talked about. The fact that they have the wrong motivations means the principles are off. And then the companies that you've mentioned just now, they don't mention Agile, but what comes out of there is that they've got Agile principles in the things that they do, right? And I think a lot of the incumbents that have been doing very well for the last 1, 2, 3, 4 decades, if they hear lean, they imagine lean from back in the day. They're not talking about lean as in customer centric. Everything else is something that you don't want to waste your time as a focus or priority on, because you need to prioritize business that way. So yeah, it is. I forget now what your question was, but everything you guys mentioned is something that I remember. And something I'm wondering is whether another reason for the failure is that they seem to imagine the rituals will change behaviors, And then we often use the word mindset, I think. I think Farzan
Yeah.
and I have mentioned it a few times on other episodes as well.
Yeah.
And we always hear it in the office. But I'm constantly asking myself at work, like, how do I change the principles around business? And then, you know, if I can figure that out, then I can change it. Because today, my role at work is to, the situation you mentioned earlier, where you can decide which path they're going down based on how they respond to the question, is because you want to determine whether they're psychologically open to the change.
Yep.
If the mind is closed, you're not going to try and push against that door. There's almost no point, right?
Yeah.
They're just not ready. So, but I'm always being asked, I think, to consider at work, how to open the mind so that they're open to change. I kind of wish I'd done a psychology degree at some point.
I think there's an answer to that.
Yeah, yeah.
Hypnosis.
I was hoping.
Hypnotize.
Sorry.
So is that
The
part of the
magic
package
thing.
of solutions then?
No, I'll consider partnering though.
So
If there's any of your audience who can help.
On that note, so my first employee has a degree in psychology.
Okay.
He's on the path.
Well, for me, the path is organizational psychology, right? And I think you did mention mindset. And if you to tie back to what Eric was saying, Kotter, right? Kotter invented this 8-step change thing, right? He made it famous. You know what's the first step? Burning platform.
Burning
Platform.
Burning platform. There has to be a burning platform individually and for the organization, for every level, there has to be a burning platform. Like if you look at telcos, the burning platform was that their backs were against the wall. They were losing the data war, right? So that was a burning platform. So when you look at an individual, what is your typical burning platforms? If you and if there's none, that's exactly what Eric was saying earlier. There is no reason for change. So you cannot fake change. It has to be there. It must exist. So if then the only thing you can probably do is look for that reason and see if it's strong enough. And sometimes someone doesn't see it themselves. You have to go and talk to them. And this is where things like psychology comes in, like, not hypnosis, but in a conversation, you bring that out.
Yeah.
What is a burning platform for you,
Yeah.
right? And then if you can harp on a burning platform, that's all you need. And then you go to the second step, which I can't remember, but you go to the second onward, right? But that's how it starts.
Do you recall what the 8th step was, by the way? Not testing
I
here.
can't
just
even remember
I just
the
wonder
second
where
one.
It ends. It must be a loop of some kind.
I know. I wish I had better memory or I brought my laptop with me. It's there. Yeah, but the first one is what I remember clearly: burning platform.
Burning platform. Okay. With all this, right? There's a notion about mindset. There's a notion about transformation and doing agile. So I want to pull this question back to one of the famous phrases: being agile versus doing agile. How would you differentiate a business being agile versus a business doing agile?
I think like what Ayad was saying earlier. They do all these events and stuff. Daily
Rituals.
stand-ups, the rituals, and all that stuff. And it's like a glorified event management company that just keeps running this and glorifies all of these events. And actually, there are some organizations that actually calculate how many stand-ups has that team done, how long has the sprint lasted.
My jaw is on the floor. This is what they're measuring.
Yeah, they're measuring. It's desperate times, right? Because I want to prove that the agile culture is embedded. So how do I do that? They're struggling to find metrics to measure agile adoption. So they're looking and hanging on to these events and this glorified stuff that people do, rituals, right? Which that is doing agile.
Doing agile.
Technically doing Scrum, because everyone thinks agile means Scrum, but I think in a whole organization, only 5% can actually use Scrum. The rest should not be using Scrum.
Agreed.
It doesn't apply, right? Kanban probably works better for the rest of them, but that's the problem, right? Because you do not have a strong reason for that change.
Right.
You just brought in and made Agile the reason for the change, and that's what you're going to see. This is what you're going to see, right?
I have two analogies in my head right now, so I'm just going to throw it out there. One is if you follow a recipe, right? You first take like flour, you break some eggs, and you measure the water and everything. You stir it up and you put it in the oven and you bake a cake. Does it make you a pâtissier? Does it make you a baker? So if you're just following the steps and you're measuring, did you weigh exactly the correct amount and stuff like that? You may be really good with following recipes, but you will never be a good baker. You will never be able to experiment and try new flavors, try new things, because you have to follow the steps. When you're not following the steps, therefore you are not, doing agile anymore. You're not doing bakery anymore. But you are a baker. When you are a baker, then you can actually go beyond that. The other analogy when he was talking about measurements reminds me of the thing. If you measure football, like you watch football, right? Do you measure how much, like, possession, this team has more possession than the other team? This guy ran 10 km, in the first half. Wow, great job. So are you gonna reward the person for them running around and having possession, or are you gonna reward them for scoring the goal? So which one are we looking at? And oftentimes we are so fixated on the small things that we lose sight of the goal. So
Yes.
that's a big problem.
There's a term for that. Eric Ries, I think when he wrote the Lean Startup, he calls it vanity metrics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have
yes.
it.
Yes, because they look beautiful on a slide.
Yeah, I
and
know.
The
Yeah.
updates, right?
Yeah. Nice on the dashboard on a
Yeah,
slide.
lovely.
Yeah.
But it's for vanity's sake, that's it.
90% ball possession goals.
But that's a good analogy because me being a United fan, Roy Keane has quite a cult following these days.
Okay.
So there's an account that says "No Context Keane," and his recent quote was that the football tricks people into thinking the individual is a good footballer when it's with him because he does the tricks, the step overs. He might score the goal, but only 3% of the match does anyone have the ball with them on average.
Right.
The 97% of the time, it's all about positioning, awareness, communication, organization,
Interesting.
understanding where you need to be in relation to the others. And I think that it's quite a good crossover to those metrics, right? Because scoring the goal is the lagging metric that we all want. But trying to work out for your business in the context of how people communicate within their team, with other teams, what's going to motivate them towards the change, that is something only you can work out. And I think that you can be facilitated, you can have some facilitation to work it out, but they need to develop their own ability to talk about this, to identify it before they get anywhere. And that I think that takes a few years, right? Because you sit down, spend the time discussing it, arguing with each other, a few challenges here and there. I know the Accenture guys, challenge.
So if I were to pull back everything here to encapsulate the points that you brought out, being agile is mostly about, I know what my end goal is, but I'm not tied back by all the rules or processes. Rather, I'm being flexible enough to work my way around. I know the techniques, I know the strategy, but it's all about the end goal, and we chase towards that. Doing agile, on the other hand, is knowing what the ritual is, and I'm very good at doing ritual, right? So if I'm a striker, I know how to kick the ball, and probably that's it. Versus being agile is, I see a goal there, and we work towards that.
Yeah. The unfortunate reality in Asian countries is that we're very process compliant.
Yeah.
So if someone gives you a process to follow, you're really good at it, right? So that's where doing becomes a lot easier than being.
Well, I have to attribute that to how we were basically how we grew up, right? Since we were, kid days, school days, we've been taught to follow. We've never been taught to actually question things or challenge things.
Yep.
So when we grew up, it makes sense for us to just be a follower rather than someone who say, "Oh, is this the right thing to do?" That kind of scenario.
In school, we're taught to become good workers, follow instructions. Teachers will punish you if you diverge from, the exact answer or the template that you're supposed to do, even if the answer is correct, but it's slightly different from the so-called score sheet. Yeah.
It's education system. Hasn't changed since the day it started.
Oops.
You should do a podcast on the education system.
Oh, it's a great topic actually. But
Actually, who would you say we should bring on for that topic?
That's a very good question. I think you need to look at the guys who are doing a lot of online learning, who are testing that. I mean, people who are doing similar things like the Khan Academy. Getting Sell Khan probably is.
And that's why we initially wanted to invite the Pandai.com guys, because I think that's going to be a lovely topic to discuss. Now, we had a good conversation about being agile versus doing agile, what business agility is in the first part. But during that part, you mentioned a lot about how being agile enables you to experiment. In fact, you mentioned in order to do a good in order for you to be able to adapt or adopt agile better, you need to be able to experiment how you want to adopt that, right? What's the correlation between agility and experimenting?
So we have this thing, our vision for my company at least, the vision is to turn every team into a startup and every employee within it into an entrepreneur. So that's the goal, right? So every engagement, that's our aim. So the idea here is entrepreneurship, and that goes back to innovation, right? Innovation, again, is a big word. So the idea here is if you're doing experimenting, you're actually doing innovation. So within an organization, you become an entrepreneur. So you have to be given the freedom, like if you were a startup, what do I need to experiment on this? The most important thing that I need is not just the tools and the encouragement and the reward and stuff like that. The idea that I am okay to see failure and I'm going to learn from it. Look, I like this one company that had this, I can't remember the name of the company, but they had this thing where award for the top failure. It's a hall of fame for the top failure. The only criteria to win that is that you have to describe what you have learned. Not the fact that you fail, but what have you learned and how valuable is the learning, right? So I think that's the sort of stuff that experimentation really is about. It goes back to scientific method, right? So Agile is really not new. There's another thing that we need to realize. Agile is actually the scientific method. It's technically the scientific method, right? Like the way you experiment, the way you try things, the way you fail, it's just scientific method. And it's a very old school way of thinking. We just retermed it and reframed it into Agile. Right. It's the same thing, right? So if you're going to experiment, do you do it with an entire organization or do you choose a set group of people who are ready to experiment? There's a reason for experimentation and leave them be. Let them keep trying. Yeah.
But okay, again, running a business, I don't see a lot of business has the necessity to run experiments. Okay, maybe you guys touch on this, right? If there's no need, there's no need, right? But I'm just thinking along the line of why. Right? I'm a business owner.
Yeah.
Even if I see there's a need to change, right? Why do I need to allow my team to do this experimentation? Why can't I just the old days R&D? Why can't I just do study the market research, let other people do the work, pay some consultants, and get the work done, and rather than having my employees spending resources on my employees to have an uncertainty about the returns.
Like I said earlier, you can. If that's what you want to do, you can. But I think there are different parts of it, right? The part that Subash was talking about is innovating within an existing product in which you are already running an agile, let's say development, that kind of thing, right? But if I take a step back and look at it from, let's say, ground zero, I'm starting with a new, let's say, company. I want to build an app for certain things. Then this is my first product. So how I would go approach that is I need to innovate. I need to come up with something unique that people don't have. So I will do that whole desirability, viability, feasibility stuff. So I will go through the innovation stages using things like design thinking and things like that. But once my minimum viable product is proven, I've done a proof of concept, it works, customers like it, there are people who are willing to pay, then I will go into the so-called product building cycle, and that's where I use Agile. So I continue to build on this product number one. I use Agile, I get the feedback loops, I tweak it based on the inputs, but I will continue using design thinking and innovations to come up with product number two. Right? So there are different parts of this entire Agile and innovation. It's not all meshed into one section. So the part where it's an existing product, yes, you keep on improving. Continuous improvement is important. So there's also two parts in that. One is the business side, as in what does customer want? Let's do what customer wants. That's the other part, the technical part. So now we go back to Agile as technical. You have DevOps, we have automation testing, we have cybersecurity being built in. All of these things are what makes Agile to be suitable for this kind of environment that we're in, because you cannot be like, oh, okay, I built what business once, but I have tons of technical debt, and if you want me to change this like small thing right now, it'll take me 1 month because I've ignored all the best ways of doing the coding. Yeah. Eyad is overloaded.
No, yeah, I was gonna jump. No, carry on. Go on. It's okay. There was a pause, so it's okay. You can carry on. Yeah.
No, because I was thinking, right? You mentioned that part where there's an innovation pipeline at the very beginning, and then there's design thinking in order to make that innovation work better, and then there's the agile practices that comes after at least the MVP one that talks about the continuous improvement there. But in my experience, experimentation goes along the way, right? And as we think about being agile, is also to be able to understand how these experiments change the way you think, all the way from the very beginning to forever, right? There's no stop to this, right? Like, because if you look at how, for example, let's take an app, right? App changes almost every few months. There's going to be constant updates to that. So I see Agile as an enabler to this sort of like continuous world. But one thing that I don't really understand is how so? Like, is it just about being able to reflect back? Or what does Agile bring to the table that's different than how things were done in the past? If I take, let me take an example. Let's say F&B, food, right? Food business. I run a restaurant. In the old days, it's probably flat. I have a single menu item, and that's it. I get feedback. Maybe I change, put a bit more salt or whatever it is. Once I'm comfortable, it's out there, and that's it. How would I run it differently with experimentation with Agile?
I'm gonna attempt something here, right? Because we're trying to dig out why it's needed.
Yeah.
And the often told story is the Ford car, right? If you had asked any customer, so you're already trying to be customer centric here. What they wanted, they'd have said a faster horse, or more horses pulling my carriage, right?
Yeah.
But the car comes along, so it wasn't about the product, the horse, so to speak. It was about going from A to B, right?
Yeah.
Now, and drawing on some things I've sort of learned along the way is, let's take why it's different, why it's needed. If you're going to do things your own way, we're going to plan a project out. It's been done before. You largely know the parameters. Timelines are roughly known.
Yep.
Supplier ecosystem, supply chain is there. You know what's going on. You know who your customer is, your ideal customer profile. And you launch the project, there's a budget, and you're supposed to do it as efficiently as possible.
Yep.
That's what needs to change, because the world is now, the environment outside of the business, I think, changes at a faster rate now. And customers are changing.
Yep.
Their own driving motivations are changing, even from a B2B sense, right? So I think Agile takes the shift away from executing really fast along the way. So yes, the reflection is part of it, because you then go through and you reflect on, okay, where's that next growth? Should I now make an investment choice into here or there, right? And here or there is along the same sort of value stream, but it might be different projects that are prioritized differently. If you're just looking at Agile way of deploying working capital, for example, right? And I think that is something that business leaders don't quite get, because I think that they confuse Agile still in a project sense, right? Oh, it's a better way of getting this app out. Scrum, sprint, lean. So that's what I think is kind of going on there. They don't quite get the shift from project to lean budgeting, product, customer centricity. But you guys are love to hear what you think, but that's what I think.
Yeah, and that's what I like to. I use F&B as an example earlier, because I know people, when it comes to IT, people get it, Agile IT, right? But if I take it into a different context, in this context, F&B, I run a business. I used to run one manual item, I get enough feedback, and then it's on the market, that's it. Versus how should I run this Agile?
So that's a problem with Agile is when it's sold, they sell it by demonizing project management, the typical project management. But it's nothing wrong with the typical project management, because if you know exactly what the outcome should look like, then just go ahead and do waterfall.
Yes.
You don't need to.
Yes.
Right?
You don't
Because you
need
got
it.
planning, you plan it and you execute. But it's only the 10% of what you do in your business. Sometimes it's you're trying to test the market with something new. Then Agile works really well because you're giving the freedom to a team and you're giving the framework to a team to test, to experiment. So that's why I was saying, it's about turning teams into startups. So inside your organization, you identify a team, and the biggest advantage of this is it's an experimentation for a team to test out. So you're giving them complete freedom to experiment on a product, not a project. So it's a product thinking that they need to have. That means if I were to do this, if I go live, the baby's just born, right? The life of the baby is a long way from there. Operations, how am I going to market? So typically, if you were to set up this team that's running Agile, you need to think about the marketing guy. You need to think about who's the CEO. You need to think about who's going to be the financial guy. You need to have that sort of cross-functionality within the team. But it's a product team. So you don't set them up for 6 months on a plan and then after disband the team. That is not Agile.
Yeah, that's really it. Because a lot of time when new product pops up, it comes out as a project. Say, okay, strategically, we have this strategy to build a new product, put it in the market, and blah, 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 blah. Once 6 months in the project, the product's been developed, that's it. And then people at the back end, it's like, okay, so who's going to support this?
Exactly.
Never mind that. Even finance teams will be like, so what happened to your project that you planned 9 months ago last year? It's like, we're shifting. No, but what happened to the project? It was never a project, it was a product. You know what I mean?
That's another scenario. And this is real, Build a new product, right? But then the conversation that's been around the team is, so when are you going to leave the team? Is this a project, right? What's the next project?
Yeah, it's all temporary, right? And that's the problem. We need to get away from that. So meaning leaders need to realize that the moment I start an Agile team, I'm investing in the long run. So I need to be able to put money on the table to say that this team is going to last for some time and they are a product team. It's almost me setting up a mini department to own a product. Am I vested in that? So, and then no organization can do that in a large scale. And that's why Agile does not work across the organization. You need to experiment in small product teams.
Right.
So you need to,
But what I feel is a bit tricky. I mean, I'm trying to digest your earlier, how you were describing it earlier about like projects and everything. But if I try to explain it right, what we do when we go to like clients is we try to diagnose what type of work they are doing, right? So we have some sort of frameworks that we use. So if we identify that, this type of work is really repetitive, is very much something that maybe you can get lower level stuff to do, like data entry, all those kind of stuff. You have RPA, automations and stuff like that. So those are the stuff that people should be worried about because these are just replaceable. AI comes in and you can do it. The other part will be like projects. So projects are things that you've done something before. So let's say I want to build a construction, right? So I built houses before. Now I'm going to a new site. I need to survey the ground. I need to see what kind of soil. I need to see with the water underneath and stuff like that. So this should be run as projects.
Yes.
Right? You're not going to build an Agile house and let's start with the kitchen and then let's start with upstairs, but you don't have foundations. It doesn't make any sense.
Let's start with who's going to occupy the building. Yeah.
So the thing is, we are getting more and more of the non-project work in today's fast-paced world. And this is what we call the unknown unknowns. So in building a house, there are things you know, there are things you don't yet know, which you get expert land survey, blah, blah, blah. And then you know what to do, then you kind of gauge the timing that you need to, let's say, do additional laying and stuff like that. But when it's unknown, then what you going to do? Are you going to sit there, have, workshops and try to think what customer wants, and then when you ask them the question, like the Ford example, they'll say, I want faster horses. Okay, let's build more horses, But that's not the way. You need to do experiments, try it small. Don't spend too much money. Don't try to guess the thing and then you spend $1 million and then after that it's all wasted. You just start small, build it up. That's what Agile is about.
Yeah.
And it addresses that type of problem.
Yeah.
So the problem is when people try to sell it to the other scenario. Like you're building a house, I say you should build a house in the Agile way.
Yeah.
then they'll be like, there's no benefit.
Allow me to bring it
Yeah.
back to my F&B example, right? So if I'm just improving my one single item menu, then it's probably just continuous improvement, nothing agile about that, right? Just listening to what customer says. It needs a bit more salt, or it needs to be a bit more sweet, or whatever that is. But if I'm going to create a new item on the menu, probably I assign one of the chef to experiment with this, right? Create a new item, have a small group, test it out, and get some feedback, and continuously improve until at a steady
Right.
state, right? Or maybe if I want to be totally blank and say, okay, let's open a new restaurant. Right, and this is probably something out of the picture because I know how to run a restaurant. I just don't know the menu right. So there's a part of it that's going to be a project, which is opening a new restaurant, but a part of it is going to be unknown, which is creating that menu. I guess
Wait,
that's-
just hang on there. I think we go one by one, right? Because you're talking about like food experimentation,
Sure.
developing
Yeah.
new product line. So I think it's very normal to have your R&D team, right? Like if you're creating a new type of bread and you want to have different type of bread, like whether you put ikan bilis and sambal inside and that kind of stuff, right? You want to experiment and do that stuff. They have people already doing that. But what value can agility bring? I wouldn't say do this in an agile way and do scrum and stuff like that. I would look at it and say, how long does it take for you to come up with a new product? If they say, typically 18 months, then it's like, is that the kind of time that you're happy with? If they're okay, then okay, that's fine. If they say, no, it's really too long, we need to bring it down to, let's say, 1 year or 6 months, or half, how can we do it? Then we'll come in and look at all the different, roadblocks along the way, right? Because it's not just about the thing. If you discover something, the flavor is good, everybody tests, is happy, you have regulations, you have your supply chain, you have all the other things that are surrounding it, and this goes into all the systems thinking and connectedness, right? Then you have to figure out how do you connect all of them in together to innovate this product quickly.
Right. Okay. Now, assuming everything's in set place, right?
Yeah.
Assuming everything is set, there's a reason to change. There's a lot of unknowns in this particular, let's say I want to create a new product, right? But what I'm struggling is how would it impact the finance team? Because what I've heard is, not from this conversation, from actual experience, is the finance goes bonkers. Like, okay, now you're asking me to be agile in budgeting. No way. You've already asked for a budget. We're going to work around this budget. But you all know when it goes agile, it's unknown. You're really unsure about how much would things cost. Of course, we start small, but how small? How would that needs to reflect on the finance, on the budgeting process? Or maybe if I make it even simpler, around managing expectation of the stakeholders.
I can give you a classic example of one we did in finance before. We had this experiment where we wanted to bank the unbanked, these immigrant workers, right? And we wanted to get them to open accounts. And when we did the design thinking thing, and we empathized with them, and they found out that they just did not want to walk into a bank because they feel intimidated walking into a branch. So they carry the cash back, and then they get robbed, and things go missing and things like that. So we said, let's bring the bank to them. So we wanted to bring a truck to them and get them to open the account in the truck. And then every lunchtime, someone comes in. So we had someone who can speak Indonesian as well. But our finance team asked us what the ROI is in 3 years or in 5 years of doing this. And there's no way. This is unknown. So we cannot project an ROI, right? So this is where our innovation for this organization I used to work with failed because we were stuck with this ROI thinking. So the only way to change that for me is leaders should just park a pool of money as like a bet, saying that I'm going to use this for all experimentation, no ROI attached to it. It's a gamble, right? I mean, this is what American companies do. The fantastic American companies, they just gamble with the money and just try it out, right? I'm okay losing this. This is the money I've parked aside to lose. It's okay if everything goes, right? So finance should not go there and say, no, allocate, give me the ROI for this $10 that you're going to spend on this, right? We shouldn't be asking that.
Yeah, it's burning over there.
There was a time in the past where we got the that ring fenced budget. I remember, and then approval to spend it was another story.
Yeah, because in my experience, there's also been instances where this innovation budget per se is parked under the marketing team. And it's smartly done so because what has happened is people, as people think about ROI, smartly done, they think about where in this organization, people don't really talk about return on the investment. And they thought, hey, why not in marketing? Of course, there's the performance marketing, not talk about that, but it's mostly on the brand marketing. Not to say it's without matrices, but it's easier to justify that. Ultimately, when we think about parking this money and managing this fund, it's about risk management as well. And as we think about risk management, it's also thinking, where can we put the money and manage risk at the same time?
The idea that I think a lot of people look at when they look at risk is trying to avoid risk. But when you look at risk management, there's so many different responses to risk, right? You can avoid, you can mitigate, you can accept, and I think mitigation is lacking. I think everyone is just trying to find avoidance. Let's just completely avoid it. Cybersecurity, going on the cloud, there's another classic one. You know, why should I go on the cloud? Because it's a risky thing. So risk avoidance seems to be the topic rather than risk mitigation. And I think that's the Asian thing compared to what the guys in the West do.
Right.
They are more onto mitigation. Let's just go do it first, and if something comes up, then we kind of mitigate around it.
Right.
I mean, today, like in that topic, how can you avoid the cloud? I mean, be realistic.
True.
Yeah.
What solution can you buy today that is not on the cloud? Everyone's asking for on-premise because I want to be secure, I want to keep it on my space, right? But come on, everything's on the cloud. Get used to that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So but risk,
So Farzan, trying to bring back your question here, in terms of finance, I don't think we expect finance to become an agile finance. The kind of question about ROI usually comes in when you do an agile transformation. So they think that, it again, go back to that traditional mindset. I bring in this kind of thing, I bring in the consultant, I run this, and then everybody rah-rah, then suddenly my performance jumps. So, of course, if you look at it from that perspective, I'm investing, let's say, $1 million for these guys to bring in this new way of working. And then after that, I expect that, let's say my revenue now is 10 million, I expect it to double, so I expect 20 million. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, then it doesn't work. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of, hey, you know, we have our R&D and they're taking 18 months. Can we make it faster? Can we do better? Can we break it down into the quarterly planning instead of the yearly planning? Can we help them to connect the dots between our suppliers who provide certain things and even ask the suppliers whether they can experiment with us? So this is what that entire business agility is about. And finance can come in supporting it, where the bosses say, okay, this is the fund that I've put out and we want to go with these experiments and we have already onboarded partners, so let's do it. So it's very different.
Yep. I get it. So what essentially what you're saying is, finance doesn't need to be agile, right? As long as you know how to manage expectation and know where the pool of money is coming in.
I would say that a company which is business agility, that encapsulates this business agility, means that the supporting roles such as like HR, finance, etc., the supporting roles are all connected to the so-called delivery agile teams, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in IT delivery, then you have a more nimble organization that can turn and pivot quickly and easily so that you can achieve the goals that you wanted.
I think that's the key word, interconnected to the agile team, because from what I gather is these functional or these support function doesn't necessarily have to be agile as long as they're connected and understand your way of working. Because at a lot of time they don't really understand, so they can't empathize with the rapid change that you guys are going. To your point earlier, moving away from role based to skill set based. So for example, HR is like, why is this guy doing this thing? Isn't your role doing this, right? Because they don't understand. And HR does not need to be agile in that sense. They just need to be understanding of the situation happening.
I think that's a very nice way of putting it. Sometimes I think there is clear conflict of interest in terms of why the supporting roles exist, usually for core business. And they're not there to assist you in taking risks, to your point earlier, Subash. And it's often I found, don't you think, that going back to the finance point that you made, maybe it's not agile finance, but I think companies that want to explore these new businesses need to do a better job of understanding how to de-risk that fund they put aside. There are a few ways they can do that. Like Farzan mentioned earlier, depending on where you want to put it. Brand, for example, right? Clearly a cost center. Launch new brands to the market as a way to test, fine. Another way is they've got a venture factory of some kind. That's another option they've got to do that in terms of the finance side, because I think they struggle to decide that decision on whether to continue supporting those experiments if they don't put aside that fund and then allow them to run it as individual P&Ls, because they tend to confuse that fund with having to generate that ROI, right? Whereas if you're taking a portfolio view, that that in your portfolio there's a certain percentage guaranteed to go off the rails and not work at all, but you don't have to worry about consistently buying them out, right? Bailing them out. You can just focus on the ones that are working and make sure that you support them as they continue. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I know. I mean, two practical things that can be done for the support side. First, don't call them support anymore. Call them enabling functions, right? And then the second thing is, instead of calling them administrators, turn them into consultants,
right?
Internal consultants. So audit.
Yeah.
Consult me on audit-related matters before it becomes an audit issue. Consult me on risk matters before consult me on people matters. So it becomes a enabling consulting function. That way, the whole perspective changes. As opposed to me policing you, I am now advising you upfront. I am taking a proactive role. That just changes everything. But it's easier said than done, because if I'm doing 20 years of policing, and then suddenly someone comes to me, now from a police officer, can you turn to a consultant? And it's like, what?
Yeah. But
You mean
so
I need to
Hollywood
listen?
movies turning the cook into a police officer.
You mean now I need to listen?
Yeah, I really like what Subash is saying, because one of the things, I like how this resonates, right? Because one of the things that I've always been thinking about is that we always say, let's take care of the customers. But when we're an internal stakeholder, right? Let's say I'm from audit and I come to you like, oh, did you do it correctly? So I don't treat you as a customer. But what you're saying is be an enabler and a consultant means that, hey, actually, this is my customer and I'm supposed to help my customers be successful, but because we're in the same boat, we're in the same company, and by helping my customer do really well and avoid, let's say, audit issues or regulatory or cybersecurity issues from the start, then we can all move forward together. But a lot of times, this goes to a related topic, is where KPIs are different. So his job could be going as fast as possible. My job is to make sure he doesn't fall down.
Yeah.
So I would say slow down. If you don't slow down, you're gonna fall. So how do you balance that? So that's a different topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why AI can come in and take away most of the enabling functions. So
A great segue.
Robotics.
Acting as the master consultant, please facilitate the conversation.
Exactly.
between the
Have you heard of
enabler and the
Moderna?
business.
Moderna, and what they're doing, what they've done is they've taken on ChatGPT Enterprise. Every employee in Moderna, the pharmaceutical, has access to ChatGPT, and they're creating chatbots. ChatGPT has this bot thing. Everyone's got it for every function in the organization. So literally, everyone, if you're a Batman, you've got a Robin next to you walking with you everywhere.
Brilliant.
Completely empowered with the chatbots. Now, it's not going to replace your job, but it's going to supercharge your job.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you think of an enabling function, which we are also on the topic, if I had HR consultant, now I'm looking at enabling consultant walking around, all my administrative information, all the stuff I need to know about the details of payroll, I've got my Robin, which is a chatbot. I ask it on the spot, tell me about this stuff, and then I sit and I have a conversation with you as a customer.
I thought it should be Alfred.
Alfred, that's a better one. That's a better one. But no one knows Alfred. Everyone knows Robin.
Oh, okay.
better one, Jarvis. Everyone knows Jarvis.
Yes, yeah.
But that's really interesting because now we're going into the topic of AI. I'm not sure whether you have time to go into depth.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because it's related to the pace of change of technology, and with AI, it has supercharged a lot of these changes. So the question begs then, how do we look at AI or in general technology advancements from the lens of agility?
Well, okay, let's look at the way to look at how AI is going to disrupt anyone's job, including people who are playing agile roles, is in your job today, what do you do? If I had to list down the 10 things that I do today in my job, AI is probably not going to replace all 10 things, but at least 5 is guaranteed to go. So, and then when I take away the 5 and push it off to the AI to do it, I need to fill that space with something new. That's the struggle today. So if I am a Scrum Master, for example, I can use AI to consolidate and do a very quick sentiment analysis, which is a very analytical term, of all my conversations I've had with all my coaches that I have had. So all the team leads I've been speaking to, I could have several, and I'm doing a Scrum Master for all of them. All my conversations with them through Teams or any of this, I take all of that, consolidate, do a sentiment analysis using AI tools, which is quite fast. And then I can get the top 10 sentiments that is coming through. And then I use this as my tool to go in and have better conversations. And I can ask for advice. Now, another way of using it is, as a Scrum Master, I can play a persona role. I can ask ChatGPT, can you be this person for me? And this is a struggle I set all the context, and then I role play. I test my skills of consulting or coaching with the tool. So there's so many ways of supercharging. The role doesn't not go away, right? But you're just taking away after the 10 things, 5 things are going to go for sure. And this applies to beyond Agile, anyone's job today.
Yeah.
The knowledge worker, 50% is gone, right?
To a certain extent,
Yeah.
even your test groups, because there's a
Oh,
tool,
wow.
there's a tool online, AI based,
Yes.
that if you have a question, you want to ask sort of like a random distribution, right? This tool, you just name your market, and then you ask your question away. It will provide sort of a typical answer. So I have no idea how they do it, but they do it. They're saying it's not accurate, fine, but it's a first gauge of whether you're in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First draft. Fantastic first draft, right? So I'm going to do this training for this organization, and I'm training like 100 different people on to become data analytics people. I mean, this is like within the business, but to have a data analytic mindset. So for them to do simple modeling and things like that. So part of the training is now we're at a stage where they need to create models. So analytical models, right? I mean, Monte Carlo, regression, and all this stuff. So for me to give examples, in the old days, what I had to do is I have to learn up the thing in detail, create my own data set, which is near impossible to do in a short time frame. The other day, I just sat over one night, went into ChatGPT, and I gave it the context and says, create a data set for me. Tell me which tables I should be using, created the entire data set for me. And then I say, can you do regression analysis on this? Data analysis, I need a visual because you can use ChatGPT 4.0 now.
Amazing.
Create a visual, done.
Wow.
And then, and if I want to know more, I can just say, explain this to me. If there was someone who's going to learn this, and if they ask this question, what would you say? So basically, it's just in one evening, I have the entire thing done up.
Amazing.
Right. So
You know what just occurred to me? Have you? Because we're always asking about. You mentioned replacing you, or me, right? Actually, have you heard of anyone running an AI workforce? So AI create the workforce. 250
There is.
people. There is. You've heard of this? How did it go?
So today, the talk of AI is all agent-based. That's the new thing that's going to come out, right? And today, there is agent-based codes that you can use right now with Python, and I've tried this before, you create an agent who plays the role of a project manager. You create an agent who plays the marketing role. You create an agent who does the technical role. And then what I do is, I tell the project manager, this is my objective. Go out and get it done. In a minute, the project manager works with the marketing agent, and then it gets the feedback, and then they feedback. So they just go in a loop, talk about all the things they need to do like a project team, and then come back to me with the outcome.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to use that.
And it is. So a lot of AI companies now, like, have you heard of you.com? It's a search-based, and it's being crowded. It's quite crowded now, the search-based AI thing, with Perplexity and all that. So they are giving up on their search thing, and they've gone into the agent model.
The agent model.
So everyone's now creating agent models. It's all about agent models. The only trick to it is to make it efficient is the memory space. So there is other technologies that are now working on improving the memory of agents. So now if you have that, we are getting closer and closer to artificial general intelligence. And
So for the uninitiated, the agent is essentially like nodes. Instead of asking one prompt, you're asking one prompt and it goes to talk to the whole committee and then comes back with an
exactly.
answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing, right? I mean, the future is just so different.
Yes.
Right?
Because I could structure it as I'm the CEO. These are the strategic imperatives of the business. This is what happened last year. You've got your agents, your C-suite. They've got their sub-agents, right? And then I just let it go, see what comes back.
So we're going to go talk to a lot of these organizations which I'm doing right now. It's to do process improvement. So I used to do CMMI and all these other things, fun things, right? So we always look at a process as is to be and then right? But now, no longer talking about RPA, none of that matters anymore because I'm going to look at a process and I'm going to say, where can I insert AI in there? AI, the whole workflow out. So I'm not just doing repetitive work anymore with tools. I'm going to do intelligent work with AI. So I'm going to outsource the thinking part of it. So, but the problem with doing this is dangerous is because if I do this, all I'm saying is if 90%, I'm talking about finance mainly, right? Mainly in finance, 90% of the time they're just running reports. And the most chunky thing they probably would do is Excel sheets and pivot tables. If I can do that with AI, which I can right now, you need to start thinking about what's next for you. Strategic finance. You need to elevate yourself. So that I cannot help you. So it's
because that's going to be a very interesting topic in itself. And I beg that we should come back, dive a little bit deeper on the topic of AI because, like you said, right? It's not just about the tool and what we see today, but it's about how is it transforming the workforce, the processes, and potentially in the future technology. So the future is, it's big and we don't know what it looks like. But today we're already seeing a full-blown company run just purely AI through agents, right? So with that, I think it's a good segue to close this off. We're going to probably have a deeper conversation on AI. Let's see whether we can have a separate podcast on that. But before that, anything, any additional words you want to talk about business agility, agile, or innovation to our audience out there? Probably one or two words about what should they think of when they think about business agility, especially.
Okay. So before I go into my closing, I just want to talk a little bit about the AI part, just to add a little bit. Because in Agile, I mean, right now the topic is about Agile and AI. So it does not necessarily have to be that AI is going to replace Agile coaches, etc., etc. And as Subash mentioned, it can supercharge any of the different works, and you need to identify which parts are actually better suited for the AI to do rather than you humans trying to do it yourself. Oh, you humans, like I'm not AI, right? But the thing is, from the conversation, I can see that actually, also linking back to education, right? It's about asking the right questions. If we are all trained to just take orders and doing the actions, then we will never ask the right questions. We will never ask AI to do the thing that we actually need. And so asking the right questions is actually the key to a lot of the work. Okay, so in order to ask the right questions, you must know who your customers are, you must apply empathy, you must do all of those feedbacks and understand what is really needed. And my closing thoughts is actually, I'm a little bit worried.
Okay.
Because I feel that when I talk about business agility and I look at the landscape in companies, right, Malaysia is lagging behind. So because we are very much order taker type of society, and the senior leaders in companies now are still that traditional mindset and they are not ready to pivot. So in that example that we had earlier, why should I change? Why should I change? We cannot be there to change your mind. And if that's happening, means that companies in Malaysia may lose the cutting edge to other companies in different countries around the world, right? So what I feel is that at the same time, I still have some hope in that a lot of the agility that happens, right, is because of the way that people think and do work, and they are hungry, right? Big companies not so hungry, they can get disrupted by smaller companies which are hungry, which are able to leverage technology and tools, and they will be faster and they will overtake. So that's the whole premise of business agility. If you can move faster than the big boys and you can undercut them, like the whole Kodak example, right? They created the digital camera, they patented it, but somebody else took it and ran with it and they were left behind. So yeah.
Yeah, I think mine is, if you're an organization today, so take a bet, hire a new team or find someone, a team, and identify them, give them a pool of money, ring fence it, and leave them be. And you don't have to push Agile and go and audit them whether they're doing Agile, but just say, these are tools, go for the learning, learn yourself if you have to, but have a business idea and go with it. And go with it in terms of not just as a project, but actually take it on for the full product, right? If it succeeds, I will support you, right? You can spin off into a new company, or you can just spin in and become an organization or a team of your own with a product. But take the bet, right? And leave them be. Just by practicing letting it go is sufficient to actually drive business agility. Just learning to have less control. See what happens. Let them fail, let them fall. I mean, whatever happens, at the end of it, what you're going to get is a set of employees, even after that 6 months of experimenting, are going to come back into your organization as part of other functions, and they are going to be extra powerful with knowledge and skills that is going to prove to be very important for you. So it's a win-win situation no matter which way you look at it. But you have to let go.
Let it go.
Exactly.
Hypnotize.
Hypnotize. Hypnosis coming soon on the next one.
Yeah, that's been a very interesting conversation, and I beg to have a separate session around AI, a lot deeper actually around this topic, because it's more than just Agile, it's more than just how AI would transform the way we work, and therefore I would love that. So before we end, any last words from Eric and Subash?
I think this is something that we do and very passionate about. And that's why I decided to leave a very cozy job, which pays me very well. I left it abruptly to start something like this. And my focus today is more on the Agile part and the AI piece. I'm doing it in tandem, and that's why it's called Agile in Tandem to an extent, I guess. That's the first time I'm saying that way. It's agileintandem.com, but we do a lot with organizations and large SMEs, and we kind of consult them in the way of work. And that's what we do.
So agileintandem.com,
yes.
No hyphens.
No hyphens,
Okay, great. Eric.
Me? Oh, yeah. So, as you can hear from the podcast, I'm really passionate about what I do, and I do hope to connect with companies who really want to change their organization to become more agile and to achieve business agility. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can search for Eric Wong Agile, or you can go to our company website at ekipa.co, ekipa.co. Yeah.
What does Ikipa stand for, Eric?
Ekipa stands for team. Yeah.
Interesting.
Ekipa.co.
Yeah.
And I guess that's about wrap it all. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Subash, for the time. Thank you, Eyad. And thank you, there, listeners. And if you're still here with us, it must mean that you really love our conversation. If you really love that, give us a like, give us a comment, subscribe, because we really want to hear more about what we do and how we can be better for you guys.
Absolutely. And don't forget, we're on Spotify, and Eyad. We're on Instagram, Facebook. You can follow us there with And Eyad. Drop us an email, andeyadsmail@gmail.com. And don't forget our YouTube, And Eyad as well. Like, subscribe, follow, please do. And by the way, we're doing something a little bit special. You know, we're halfway through the year. We're going to have a meet and greet. The first one, we're going to bring together whoever would like to join and meet us and the team and some of our guests. So it's your chance to interact, and let's see how we can have a good conversation in purpose over coffee. Maybe it's dinner. We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, andeyadsmail@gmail.com, with the subject RSVP, and we'll get back to you soon after that. Good night, good evening, good day. Until next time.
Until next time.
Until next time.